Ernest Holmes, the founder of this beautiful teaching, religion, philosophy, sacred energy, essence, way of life, synthesized so much of the good in this world that we could use this teaching to better our lives and the life at large, the world at large. We can use this teaching to feel better about ourselves. As Natalie talked about this morning, the potential we have inside, we can activate that and feel good about ourselves. But we've moved beyond the rugged individualism that we knew for a long time. And we've come to a place in life where it's much more important that we build connections, that we truly know what this world is all about, is building connections. And I, like Mojan, when our girls were young, we wanted them to be raised in a teaching that could expand their lives and build connections and not separations. And you know, Kirk and I have made some huge mistakes in our life and made some bad decisions, but one thing I think we've done pretty well is be good parents. And one of my greatest mentors is my daughter. And she went all through this teaching herself and has even expanded the practices. And now she's living in a place where she's making connections in the world. And being sacred, looking up the word sacred, it means connection. It's connection to God, to self, to nature, and to one another. And that's what sacred is. But that connection doesn't come from a connection of judgment or I'm better. It comes from a connection of love. So today's topic is this change is birth. And the birth we're looking for is the birth of sacred love in our life. Would you agree with me? Does that feel good that we could do that? Do you think this world would be a better place if we did that? Well, I was walking across in our dining room, and our daughter Deanna was there, and she was studying with a coworker. They were doing a workshop. This was before we left on Friday. They were doing a workshop, and they were talking. I love to listen to what they're talking about, so I kept walking by, pretending I wasn't listening, but I was, and I kept hearing the word culture repair. And I'll tell you right now, in our world, how many of you think our culture needs a little repair? You think we might need a little repair? Well, culture repair sounded so interesting to me. And I thought, you look at the wars, the imbalance in our economies, the destruction of the environment, the anger in the world, all of this. And I said, we need culture repair. So I looked online and I thought, I'm going to find out what they were talking about. Of course, it was an anthropologist and a wonderful man that's actually been here at the center, John Young. And he was talking about culture repair. And culture repair is all about building connections. And it's giving birth, changing and giving birth, but not to something necessarily new. When he talked about it, it's about the wisdom of the indigenous people. We used to live in groups of no more than like 150 people. That was what our tribes were like. And you could have better connections and relationships. And all of a sudden, we've grown into being so big, we don't know how to handle it. We need something new. We need a new way of living. We need to give birth to change. And I think, I'll tell you a little bit about this cultural renewal in a minute, but I want to talk about this change is birth and what it means. Well, we know the pillars and portals of spirit that we've talked about. Now, the pillars of spirit, of truth, these are the things we stand on that give us the courage and the strength to make the change. These things, when we stand on them, because for you and I, we are at our best when we are stabilized in our center, right? When we are stabilized in our center, connected to spirit, love, light, God, connected to these pillars of truth: love, light, consciousness or awareness, substance, oneness, surrender, and joy. I want to talk a little bit about surrender too. But when we are standing in these, we are the best people. We're the best version of ourselves when we're standing and stabilized in our center. And what I saw this morning when Gretchen sang, she came up here And she was broken open because something, we don't even know when we say something that's going to break someone else open their hearts, open their minds. We don't know. We just want to live as the best versions of ourselves. And when we aren't there, we usually know it. And then we can put the refresh or reset button and get to a place where we can be the best version, or at least move in that direction. But something you said, Mojan, broke her open. But because she was willing to be vulnerable. And that's the surrender part of this pillar. We're in a world where we think we need to be strong and we need to be guarded and protected, but she was willing to be vulnerable, and she could lay her heart and her soul and her love out and give it to us completely. And I don't know how many of you, but I get broken open from people being honest and vulnerable. And one of the things that was talked about in this culture repair was the willingness to be vulnerable, to say, I love you, and mean it. It's hard to do that sometimes because you lay your heart out there and you don't know what's going to happen. I love you. It's also the courage to say, I need help. I can't do it myself. That's not easy all the time, is it? Because we want to be strong and we want to do it ourselves. It's the way we've been taught. So we need to really focus on the vulnerable part of this pillar of strength. And when we're really stabilized and centered in our core, and I want to talk about that too, because stabilization of our core, this is something that has been taught through our teaching. Stabilizing our core means getting in touch with that part of us that is changeless, eternal, and immortal. Now, Ernest Holmes synthesized the wisdom of the ages, the wisdom of science, the wisdom of philosophy, the wisdoms of the truths that thread together religions. And we say that the only constant is change, but we also say there is something in us that is changeless and immortal. How can that be? Well, first of all, if we go back to Plato, who was a classical Greek philosopher, he said there's a divine element in every atom. This is long time ago. There's a divine element. There's a divine element in every atom that brings change. That's part of our evolution, part of this evolutionary process. And his student, Socrates, went on a little further to say there is an unmoved mover that moves everything without moving. Now, I don't know if I got that right, but it sounded good on my tongue, so I'm not going to go back and check it. But that part of us that is inside that doesn't change. It's stable, it's constant. It is that divine element, but it is in it, it has that movement, that force of change. Now here's what the 13th century Rumi said. He called it inner wakefulness. There's a part of us, no matter how asleep we might be, and it's inner wakefulness. He says it in his poetry, of course, the beautiful 13th century Sufi mystic. Humankind is being led upon an evolving course through the migration of intelligences. And though we seem to be sleeping, there is an inner wakefulness in each and every one of us that directs the dream, the potential that Natalie was talking about, that potential in us that directs the dream and will eventually startle us back to the truth of who we are. And startling us back to the truth are those portals for transformation, and they are fear, problems, judgment, conflict, disease, change, uncertainty, desire, and risk. Those don't feel like the opportunities to be woken up to the dream, but they are the opportunities in our life. So what I know, I'm touched deeply when I greet people coming in and I hear some of the things going on in life. I'm deeply touched by that. I'm deeply touched by the challenges that come to life, and still the courage to know there's something more, because it's faith and love that heal and protect and once again give us the courage. So Rumi says that. Ernest Holmes simply calls it the first cause. It was in 1963 that science recognized there was an invisible something called the boson that was a massless force that could bring change, that could bring form to life. And it was in 2000, I think in 2013, that this was proven. Inside everything, there's something called the God particle. That's part of all of us. It's the truth. It's in each and every one of us, something in us that causes change if we let it, something that will allow us to be more. But this change now with all that's going on in life and how life has changed so radically from being small communities to this large world, we need to do things differently. So sustainability is not enough in the world anymore. We can't sustain the what is. Would you agree with me? We need to do something more. And so what this cultural repair is about is revitalizing, reinvigorating life. And I love the way God works, life works, love works in my life. I looked up regenerate and reinvigorate to see, I wanted to see what the antonym was, but first it came up with all the synonyms for regenerate, invigorate. And one of those words was InSpirit. One word, InSpirit, I-N, it wasn't capitalized, but it was I-N-S-P-I-R-T. That is a word that means to regenerate and revitalize. So if we're here, we're called to be the ones to do this work in the world today, to be the regenerators of a world that needs new connections. And one of the problems with our young people is we haven't taught them very well. We haven't taught them that you can't get connected in a deep way through social media. We haven't taught them the importance of putting down the phones and the computers and being together one-on-one. We have some work to do. What's going on in our world is requiring us to be teachers and mentors of how to build connection. And this is nothing new. The Native Americans, many of the history books talk about the Native Americans and their warlike nature. However, the Native American people, each and every tribe, had different peacemaking practices. But there was a unifying thread that went through all of the peacemaking procedures. Now, even today, what happens if there's a conflict in one of the Native American societies, they bring a group together, a group of the accuser and the accused, and the family members, and community representatives. And each person shares how they've been affected by this crime or this injustice or whatever it was, this action. They share. So people listen, they're heard. How are you feeling? They're vulnerable. So what happens, this is not a punishment. This is regenerating, restoration, renewal, healing that happens. They get together in this circle and they're all heard and they come up with something new. What are we going to do about this? So not only is the problem solved, the people forgiven or healed, hopefully, but the community is restored. Divide and conquer doesn't work anymore. We need to come together. So this morning, this change's birth, I'm going to invite each and every one of us to become peacemakers in our own life because it starts with us. And the change that we give birth to, and we know when we look at the labor pains that women have, if we look at the world when it's too stressed out and the earthquakes, we know that change is birth, things change, but it's not always comfortable. We resist change because there is discomfort, because it will call us to step into the unknown and be vulnerable. We resist it because we haven't been taught how to change. So the peacemakers, and I'm going to tell you that in a minute. The greatest change that we deal with is changing from this human life to the next. We had the most beautiful, loving service here yesterday. And I see members of the family here today, and believe me, I'm still in awe. We had our beautiful celebration of life for Sheila Boswell, and I would like to just say it was the most beautiful experience because the family was willing to be vulnerable and beautiful and celebrate a woman who knew how to live this sacred love. And that is the hardest change we have when somebody we love so deeply is taken from our lives. But when we can handle it again with that love and peacemaking and beauty and coming together, not only does the family change and grow, but the entire community. So I want to thank you so much, Boswell family, for giving all of us the gift that you gave yesterday. So the peacemaking part is truly what Sheila lived and what we all need to do in order to restore this beautiful world and use the teachings that we have to come to a place of sacred love. The first thing we need to do is within ourselves find a state of peace. And as I said, that peace comes when we stabilize with our center. And whatever you call that center, whatever you call that energy of goodness, potentiality within you, that place within that is, that knows there's something more. And if I can just go back a moment, because I know there are a lot of crises, a lot of difficult times in people's lives. And this beautiful butterfly that's here, we have so much to learn from the butterfly. You know, if the caterpillar, gobbling up everything it can in its path, saw a butterfly flying above it while it was eating and hungry and sitting on a leaf, it would probably say, "You're never going to get me in one of those things." Because we don't know the wholeness of life. But inside that caterpillar that's eating and eating and eating are these imaginal cells, which is the potentiality that Natalie was talking about, of something more that wants to grow through us. But these are just cells, imaginal cells. They're just potential cells until they start working together. Working together. And once they work together, those imaginal cells become programming cells. And they create a higher design for the life of the caterpillar and in ourselves when we bring together and stabilize the potential in us that wants to love, that wants to connect, that wants to create, that wants to see the good. When we bring it all together, we create a higher design for our life and we renew and regenerate ourselves. When we're in that place, we are the best versions of ourselves. So number one, find the peace, the place within yourself. And if you're not balanced, if you're not connecting the goodness in you, it's all there, but if you're not connecting it, find a place to do it. It could be in nature, it could be meditating, it could be praying, it could be sending love, whatever it is. So often it means wanting what you really want, helping someone else, whatever it brings it to you. And the second thing is, choose your words carefully. That's the second step of peacemaking. Our words have great effect on everyone. And when we choose the words we speak because we know they will have an effect on those around us, they're not just words, they're energy and action. And when we choose them carefully and we can listen deeply and we really care about others, change will happen. And the last piece, the third part of peacemaking, is always aim for unity. Now, unity does not mean agreement. Do you get that part? Only one of you? Unity does not mean agreement. You know what it means? It means respect. That we respect someone else enough to listen to them. And how important is it right now in this crazy political time for us to have respect that someone else may not have the same understanding or thoughts we do. Never have I seen a time that's more important that we can be peacemakers and listen and understand. Because we can't possibly bring our culture together for good if we're not ready to listen and just use the example of the beautiful circle of peacemaking. In that circle, And wherever you are, if it's a circle of your family, it's a circle of your friends, if it's your AIS group, I'm going to, Adventure in Spirit Home Study Group, I'm going to invite you to have deep conversations this week. Deep conversations require listening, they require speaking, they require vulnerability, they require deep, safe, and sacred love. I just want you to feel that inside of you, and I'm going to ask you right now to just breathe in and close your eyes. And just ask yourself, where do I resist change in my life? What am I holding back on? What am I not willing to let go of, or what am I not willing to embrace? Where in my life right now, little, small change that's done consistently, that's what brings the everlasting results. What change is calling to me? And where am I willing to make a small change and do it consistently, that I can be the change maker in the world, that I can be the one that can stand here and say, yes, I am doing what I can to bring the best out not only in me, to bring the best out in others, to bring the best out in nature, and to bring the best out in this community of our world. I'm here, I matter, I make a difference because I care. I am willing right now to step into a consciousness of being fully alive. I develop the courage to say yes to life, to say yes, I'm willing to give change a chance, to give birth to something new, to take time to listen, to stabilize my center, to listen to myself, to know and recognize my oneness with life, with oneness with God, my oneness with nature, and my oneness with everyone I meet. I use the practice right now of forgiveness to forgive myself for anything I've done, the inconsistencies, the unkindness, whatever I've done in my life, the bad choices. I forgive myself. Again, opportunities, portals for learning. And I choose to learn from this life because this life is a sacred gift. And I'm here to use it with all my heart, with all my mind, with all my beingness. I'm here for a reason. I choose to see beyond my physical eyes the invisible thread that connects me to everything. I choose to hear deeper than my physical ears and hear that sound that is ever encouraging me to my greatest good, encouraging me to see the good, the light, the love in others, and to help that greatness and that love to be ignited. It is in this time, this beautiful time, that I feel the connection to all life. Life in the physical form, life in the spiritual form, life expressing as nature, as the other. I am part of it all. I let my truth be the sacred love from which I'm made. I let it move before me and prepare the way. I am both blessed and a blessing. I am loving and I am loved. I feel it all. I say thank you, God. And so it is. And I'm just going to invite you as we come back together, without speaking a word, just touch the hand of the person next to you. Speak through your energy and essence. Just know what they might need in this moment, if it is a healing, if it's encouragement. Because our energy speaks louder than anything we do. I want you all to know right here and right now, there is a healing and a goodness happening, and we're part of it all. Could we once again seal it by a little squeeze and just saying, and so it is. I truly love you all. I need you all. I bless you all. How good it is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.